Hello and welcome to today's session, Mobile Apps and the Art of the Possible. Before we get into things, I'll start with a quick introduction. My name is Mark Locker. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Attractions.io, and my background is one that's seen the attractions industry from all angles, really. First, I've worked in the attractions industry at one of the UK's largest theme parks, Alton Towers. I've also been, and still am, an avid visitor of attractions, whether that's with friends or as a romantic couple or a family with small children, so I've been through a number of the different cohorts as well. And now my business helps attractions to leverage technology to improve the guest experience. So I've been an employee, a consumer and a supplier. But why should you listen to me when it comes to apps? Well, as a supplier, Attractions.io is a platform that allows attractions to offer a branded app experience to their guests. And we've been fortunate enough to work with some fantastic world-renowned brands across 4 different continents, and we have the technology deployed in over 10 different languages. Now, at Attractions.io, we believe that technology can make visitor experiences infinitely better. And so that's what we work on helping attractions to do every single day. And the way that we do that is by focusing on the guest experience and leveraging the device that we all have in our pockets, our smartphones. Now, we've been working on app technology for visitor attractions for over a decade. We actually put the first theme park app in the App Store, and I'm really passionate about the role that apps can play in delivering the next level of visitor experiences. And so the aim of today's talk is to really show you why apps are something that you should be thinking about if you're not already. So what are we going to cover? So in order to explain the role that apps can play, I'm going to look at 3 things. First, there's the problem with today's visitor experiences, because ultimately if everything was perfect, we wouldn't need any technology, right? So we'll look at the frustrations, the inefficiencies, everything that's broken about today's experiences. Secondly, there's some important trends that can be seen, and there's an opportunity that those trends present. You know, visitor expectations and behaviours were already changing at record pace, but with COVID-19, that of course has been accelerated even further, so we will look at that. And then finally, I'm going to look at how a mobile app can help you to leverage that opportunity to drive results at your attraction, create a better experience, and drive business results as well. And why an app, I think, is the medium that can really have the most impact. Okay, but I know what you might be thinking. There are a few misconceptions, I think, about apps that I just wanted to clear up before we get into things. So perhaps you're sitting there thinking, well, we already have a website, so we don't need an app. And if you're thinking that, I would say you're not alone. I found time and time again that people simply don't understand what an app can actually do, and there's a good reason for that. There aren't many good examples out there of first-class, end-to-end app experiences for venues out in the real world. But an app can do so much more than just a website, and I'm going to show you some of those things that it can do. Another thing we hear is our Wi-Fi isn't good enough, and whilst it's true that connectivity is important, you don't need gold-plated 100% coverage. One of the nice things about apps is that rather than your website, it's actually something that's available offline. One of our customers actually came to us because they had no reception or Wi-Fi on site, and they wanted their visitors to still be able to find out about the rides and everything on site, and an app allows them to do that. We're too small for an app. That's something else, and this is something that's based really around fear. It's a fear of investment in time and money, but if you stop and think about it, guests don't really care about that. Guests have evolving expectations, and it's up to our industry to meet them. And, you know, it happens with all technology. I think when, we've been going through a transition to a cashless society, slowly. When credit cards were first introduced, there would have been lots of businesses saying, oh, we're too small for card payments, we'll just take cash. The same when contactless payments came in. But I think ultimately in a B2C environment, consumers will vote with their wallets, and that will always drive change. And there are plenty of businesses that don't adapt and end up getting left behind. Our guests won't use an app. So this is another thing that we hear, and there is data. There is data on how apps are used. So what if I told you that we've had parks with reach of over 95%? That is 95% of people on site being able to be influenced by the app. What if I told you that 90% of time on smartphones is actually spent on apps? Or that app adoption is increasing more and more each year. It was around 42% last year on year from our data. Now, perhaps you wouldn't use a theme park app, or you think you wouldn't use one. Maybe you've had bad experiences with other apps before. But there's an adage within UX design that I really like, which is, you are not your user. And indeed, I think, often you are not necessarily representative of your guests. So it's really important to seek the truth, look at the research, look at the data, to understand what trends are there and how you can best engage with your audience. So let's start with today's visitor experiences then. So the experience of visiting theme parks, resorts, zoos, other entertainment venues is outdated and disjointed. And that might sound harsh. I love attractions, and you can certainly go and have a great day out, but it can be so much better than it is today. And there are three main areas where I think this is the case. First of all, you've got the guest frustrations. Guests have to put up with numerous friction points. It starts right at the moment that you're probably trying to park your car. Then I always say, if you had aliens that were beamed down to planet Earth and they came and just observed some of our attractions, they'd be standing there scratching their heads thinking, why are these humans literally standing in line for 30 minutes to pick up a piece of paper so they can walk through a gate? And that's before things have even begun. There are lots of other difficulties. Knowing what your children can go on, how to get the most out of your visit when all the show schedules are on. There's so many things that aren't that easy. There's also a lack of influence. So this is on the business side. Marketers at attractions, they have no way of communicating or influencing guests once they are through the gates. And that's the key time, right? That's when they're going to spend money with you. That's when they're on site enjoying the experience. So there's a big gap there. And there's also a lack of data. If you look at online businesses, e-commerce, things like that, there's so much data available for these business owners to make operational decisions, optimize things. But operators at attractions have a very limited means of making data-driven decisions that can improve business performance. And I think there's a huge opportunity there as well, a huge gap and a huge problem for our industry. So those are some of the key areas where we currently have a problem. But on top of that, we've got a changing environment, a changing world to contend with as well. And the world is always changing, of course. But this year with COVID-19, things escalated slightly. So I don't think any of us obviously would have imagined how much our lives would change with COVID. But if you just put COVID-19 to the side for a moment, guest expectations were already changing rapidly. And it's being driven by a few interconnected things. You've got demographics. Guest demographics are changing. Gen Zs will be the largest consumer group by 2026, and these are true digital natives. They're people who have grown up with Google and YouTube and smartphones. And it's, these consumers, their expectations are different. They're less tolerant of waiting. They're less tolerant of friction. They hate the idea of wasting time. Now, why is that? Well, I don't believe that it's because they're inherently, impatient or just terrible human beings. It's because the experiences that they have been used to and grown up with are very different to the generation before. Seamless connected experiences are already the norm when you look at things like Netflix and Uber and Amazon. These things are personalized. They are instant, they are on demand, they have a fantastic user experience. And so, these are big changes that pose big questions for our whole industry. And that's before you throw in a global pandemic just for good measure. And COVID-19, of course, has accelerated the pace of change and our reliance on technology for all sorts of things. And I think within our industry, it's been key in areas of communication, social distancing, contactless interactions. Technology has been facilitating all of these things in ways we wouldn't have imagined at the start of the year. And so I think the bottom line from this is that attractions need to modernise their experiences to better meet these needs, and that's only been emphasised further by COVID-19. And just to sort of reinforce some of these points, here are some interesting snippets of research in these areas. So I've already mentioned about Gen Z being the largest consumer group by 2026. 78% of millennials would rather spend money on experiences rather than physical goods. A lot of us already know this. This is great for our industry. Of course, we are competing in the experience economy. We are actually competing with the likes of Netflix for time and attention and downtime. 95% of millennial consumers say they want brands to court their loyalty, from a study by Accenture. On the expectations side, 70% of customers or consumers say a company's understanding of their personal needs influences their loyalty. Customers expect to be treated like a human, not a number. That is the bottom line there. 72% of consumers will only engage with personalised marketing messages, and the standout thing for me on this is that means only 28% will engage with non-personalised marketing. And so there's a huge trend towards what people expect and what they're willing to engage with changing very much. Digital natives have zero tolerance for idle time. This came from a 3-month study across 5 continents. There were several key findings, but one of them was that, there's no tolerance for idle time from digital natives. The sheer prospect of having nothing to do literally makes them feel uncomfortable. And that's an important thing to know. And we know from our own research as well that queuing remains a top issue. It was, I think, back in 2017, in fact, at the IAPA opening keynote, Nick Varney also reasserted this truth. But I think I'd go one step further and say it's getting worse. And that would make sense, right? Because the kinds of frustrations of waiting, that is idle time. Waiting in line is idle time. And our visitors increasingly don't want to put up with that. They're not used to putting up with that, and it spoils their day. So in summary, guests want personalised experiences. They want those experiences to be free of idle time. They want to be engaged at every moment. And if we look at the experiences guests are used to, that those brands recognise this. Some other interesting stats here. For digital natives, online and offline is completely interconnected, and the barriers between digital and physical cease to exist. A great example of this is Uber. You call an Uber, you're using technology, you see where the driver is, you get notified when they arrive, you get into the vehicle. It's completely a seamless transition. 90% of mobile time is spent on apps. We've already touched on that earlier, and 70% of e-commerce sales worldwide will be transacted on a mobile device in 2020, and that is absolutely huge. And it ties up with some of the things we've already seen, again, accelerate over the past few months. Things like mobile food ordering has exploded, so lots of e-commerce transactions also happening on mobile within our industry. And then, in terms of the pandemic, well, IAPA have issued a comprehensive reopening guidance document, which is well worth reading for those of you who haven't already. And it suggests lots of different technologies that can be used to safely reopen. It specifically mentions digital ticketing, food ordering, and virtual queuing, all of which are things that tie into a branded app experience that you're able to deliver. So, what is the opportunity? I think, that there are really 2 schools of thought, if you like. That there are those people who are kind of waiting for things to go back to how they were in 2019. And there are those who are looking for the opportunities, the changes, the shifts, and how they can exploit those to do better moving forward. And I think ultimately, in my view, things aren't going back to 2019. And it's time to really look at how we can leverage this opportunity that's in front of us to reinvent the attractions experience for the better. And I think there's an opportunity to look at the whole guest journey from start to finish. And here's an example of a guest journey broken down on two levels of detail. And I think we can design an experience that delights guests and delivers business results. And the single best way to go about that is by using the device that does sit in all of our pockets. And why is that? Well, an app is the only channel, if you think about it, that can actually connect the entire guest journey pre, during, and post visit. People don't visit your website whilst they're with you. It's not the right medium. You're not going to reach everyone who's on site via social media organically. There are gaps, and an app is the one thing that throughout that whole journey, from the minute you book to you've left and you're leaving feedback, it's with you that whole time. And there's lots of different things that we're going to go through, and what I want to do now is I want to take you on a bit of a journey. So this is going to be a way of us to explore some of the things an app can do. So meet Lucy. Lucy has planned a short family break to a theme park during the school holidays. She has 2 children. They both love rides and seeing animals. She's booked a family day ticket, and she's reserved a family room at the park's on-site hotel as well. So let's see how her journey looks as she uses this attractions app. Well, as soon as Lucy made the purchase on the attractions website, she was encouraged to go and download the app so that she can make the most of her visit. And so that's what she did. And so excitedly, she wakes up on the morning of her visit and reaches for her phone. And the first thing she sees is a notification. The app knows that she's at home. It knows she's visiting today. And so it's delivered a message saying, "We can't wait to welcome you." And not only that, but it's offered driving directions and traffic information that's available in a tap. Now, when Lucy arrives at the admission area of the park, the app automatically detects that she's there, and it presents the entrance ticket that she can scan at the gate. So there's no paper, there's no waiting in line. She can just scan at the turnstiles and start her day. Now, Lucy reaches for the app as she goes through because she wants to explore the interactive park map. Now, the park map can show her exact location. It lists all of the rides, attractions, and facilities that are around her. She can quickly filter down by age and height to narrow down what rides are suitable for her children. And she finds the perfect place to start: Fly to the Terrace. It's a 1-minute walk away, and even better, there's no wait. So she taps to get a boarding pass for the ride, heads over to the ride just around the corner, presents the boarding pass, and gets straight on with her family. Now, as she comes off the ride, after a lot of screaming, Lucy gets an alert, and it's telling her that her photo is ready to view. And she can actually use the app to view her photo, a preview of her photo, purchase that photo, and instantly share it on Facebook and Instagram with her family and friends. Now, it's time for another ride, but now the park's starting to get a little bit busy, and there's actually an hour wait for this particular ride. But thankfully, the ride is using virtual queuing. So she joins the queue using her app, and she doesn't have to wait in a physical line, and she can carry on exploring. So that's exactly what she does. And as she's walking through the park, she receives a notification saying that there's a show that's starting nearby. It's a magic show, and the family love magic, so they decide to go and watch it. They tap the notification and they get instant directions. And Lucy's given the option of choosing the quickest route or an accessible route. She actually has a pushchair she's lugging around, so decides to use the accessible route, and she makes her way to the show. Now, Lucy has a fantastic time at the show, and when she leaves the show, it's perfect timing because she gets a heads up that her turn to ride is almost ready. And so they go and enjoy their second ride of the day, presenting their boarding pass and having a great time. Now, all this adrenaline is making the fact Lucy and her family feel hungry. So it's time for some lunch. Now, the kids are asking for burgers. That's their favourite. So Lucy searches for outlets that serve burgers, filters down to that, and starts browsing the menu. Perfect. The burger meal. Lucy can configure the meal. She can select her sides, her drinks. She can customise, add different toppings. And when she checks out, she'll see complimentary suggestions that can be added in a tap. And she can pay with Apple Pay as well, which makes it really easy. And within seconds, she's paid. And as soon as the order is ready, Lucy receives a notification inviting her to come and collect. And she can see the status of her order, present this at the mobile order collection point, and her meal is ready. Now, nice and full up from her burgers, the app presents another alert. Now, because children love animals, they get notified of an upcoming elephant feeding session that may be of interest. They excitedly head over to the elephants, and after spending a good while watching the elephants, the app knows that they've been there for a while, and it presents some information on the conservation work that the park is doing, with an option to adopt an elephant. This is really tiring. They've had a fantastic day, but they want to head back to the on-site hotel. And as they are on their way, they get another notification. A notification to tell them that they've been automatically checked in. There's no need to wait in line. No need to go to the check-in desk. They've got a room number. And when they arrive, they can use their app as a room key to get straight into their room. No waiting around. So they can get into the room, and then it's time to use the app to check out the entertainment schedule and make a dinner reservation. Now, once the trip is over, Lucy is asked to leave her feedback. So after leaving a glowing 5-star review, she's directed to TripAdvisor, where she leaves an equally generous account of her visit. And that is one example experience for one guest, one family. But depending on when Lucy visited, who she was with, where she was on park, we could have played that back hundreds of times, and each time would have been different for each guest. And what an app allows you to do is be personalised to each guest and provide that concierge in their pocket. It's not just about being reactive, it's about anticipating what your guests might want to do, and that is only possible with app technology. So I hope that you can see there how an app can help to deliver a far better experience for guests. But before I wrap up, I also want to touch on the impact that it can have for park operators too. Because without a way to influence on-site behaviour, operators are missing out on huge potential upside. And I want to tie this back to some of the things Lucy was experiencing as well and give you an insight into how this works. So if you can imagine you're an operator, and with an app, we know the location of guests, we know what tickets they have, we know what time of day it is, we know the makeup of their group, we know what things they've purchased. There's all sorts of data we've got. And so you can use that data to send targeted messages on autopilot automatically every day, triggered by things that are happening on site. And you saw some examples just now. And they can take different angles. So if we look at a commercial message, what you might say is, well, when a guest is at the monorail station and they've got a single day ticket and it's after 5 p.m, that's someone who's basically leaving at the end of their day. And so you might target that guest in that scenario to be presented with an upgrade opportunity to upgrade to a 2-day ticket, for example. It can also be used experientially. So if you're by the elephants, and this was the example we just had with Lucy's family, if you're by the elephants and you've been there for more than 30 minutes, we might want to present some information about the conservation work and encourage people to donate or adopt an animal for that good cause. So there's another example, and this is experiential. And then you also might want to look at doing things cross-channel. So perhaps you've got an email campaign and you want to target families with children who are season pass holders and they've visited in the last 6 months. Well, through the data that an app is able to collect, you can segment exactly that, and you can understand the email data of those people as well by capturing that through the app, and you can do cross-channel campaigns. You can even run, Facebook ads or other mediums you can get out there with a very targeted cohort of visitors. We've actually had people run Facebook ads to people who are currently on site, promoting things that are on site, because we know people will use Facebook while you're on site. So there's all sorts of things you can do. You can also visualize guest behavior to identify pinch points and start to segment and see where your pass holders go versus your day ticket holders, or perhaps how the weather affects things. And you can also use targeting to disperse guests and crowds across your attraction. So there's all of that location data as well. There are so many different possibilities to really share on this front, and the bottom line is that these things can drive real results for the business. And here are some examples from our own research. So we know that 96% of guests who say, 96% of guests say that using an app made their visit better. A huge percentage. We also know from food and beverage transactions that on average, the increase in the transaction value is 42% versus walk-up sales at the same outlet on the same day. So this is humongous, and there are numerous things that tie into this. You've got the behavioural science that tells us just placing your order without someone standing in line behind you, pressuring you to finish. That helps to increase the average transaction size. But then when you layer on things like intelligent cross-sells and upsells, an easy way to pay, the ability to order wherever you are, these make huge differences. And we've also seen through our work with some of our customers that an app can achieve tremendous ROI. One example here, we had a customer who within 2 months had returned to 16 times their investment. So with so many exciting possibilities for the guest experience and for attraction operators, the key question is, how do you get started? Now that, to be honest, is a subject of a whole other session, but we do have some fantastic resources that can help you to get started that I wanted to point you to. So if you visit attractions.io/learn, there are a number of guides, one of which is called How to Launch a Successful Mobile App for Your Attraction. And this will outline all the steps you can take. It's got some example exercises you can go through on how to plan for an app and how to make it a success. And if you're interested in some of the trends that we touched on, I also thought it was worth highlighting a recently launched guide on the guest experience trends for the new normal. That's also worth a read whilst you're there. And if you found this session interesting, then I think you will love what we do at Attractions.io. This is what we think about and work on every day. It's what we help our customers with. And so if you'd like to find out more, you can of course go to our website, attractions.io, but also don't forget to visit our virtual booth where we'll be able to take you through the Attractions.io platform and how it can help and work for your attraction. Because hopefully what you've also seen today is, arguably the platform and the tools that you have as an attraction operator or marketer or whatever you are is arguably more important than the actual app itself. Because without that, you can't really leverage, you can't target your guests, you can't gain those insights and really make that impact. So it's important you have both ends of the equation. We'd love to show you how our product helps to do that if you want to visit our virtual booth. Otherwise, if there are any questions, I'll also be delighted to answer those now.